What's up, everybody here on the Journey to Win? I'm here with Ian Prukner. I'm so excited today, man. You guys don't even know, like this individual, he's going to bring so much value to you guys today. I was blessed to meet Ian, at Rob Sperry's mastermind in the summer. And ever since, man, I've been following this guy, just watching him win in every area of his life. And as you guys know, that's what the Journey to Win is about. It's about helping people win in not just one pillar, but every area of their life. And so, Ian, welcome to the call, man. I'm super excited to have you on here.
What's up, Brandon? How are you, my friend? It's an honor to be here hanging out with you and your community. It really is an honor to spend some time. I'm excited for our conversation.
Awesome, man. Me too. Listen, you're the author of Byproduct, Autonomous Success in a Bold New World. You have a mastermind. Is it called the War Room or the War Syndicate?
The War Room. Yep, the War Room.
The War Room, guys, and he's helping mentor everybody from entrepreneurs to everybody, really just help elevate and accelerate their lives to a whole new level. And you can talk more about that if you want here in a minute. But you're a husband, you're a father, you're a leader, you own a digital real estate company, you sold your insurance company for millions and millions of dollars. So, you're somebody that I look up to. You're somebody that,
too kind.
if there was a race and we're racing, you would be the guy that I'm trying to catch. And that's ultimately my goal is I want to catch you one day.
Well, you're far too kind, and you guys are having a lot of success in your own right and building a great family, and I think doing things right. And that's so important today. I think that the social media world reiterates to us that not all that glitters is gold, right? And there's a lot of Easter bunnies on there, right? They look good on the outside, but they're hollow on the inside. You bite into them, and there's not a lot there. And winning is it is a journey. I love what you're talking about there. It's a journey. It's a process. I don't think you're ever done. I think winning really is about who you become. I think there's somebody that God has dreamed for you to be and to become, and a path that he's given us to walk. And I think our job on this planet is to walk that path and to become that person. It's a job that's never done. There are no days off from it. I was just telling one of my mentoring groups, you don't get days off. You get days off of work, sure, but you don't get days off of becoming the person you were born to be. That's an everyday thing. It's not like today you just get to say, hey, you know what, I'm going to take 5 steps backwards. I'm going to crush my habits that I've been working on and make poor decisions and ruin my family. You don't get days off on that stuff. You got to show up every day, and you got to bring your A game in the things that really matter most.
I love that. So if I was to ask you, because you touched a little bit on there about it on there, what is winning to Ian Prukner?
Yeah. I'm going to give you 2 things, right? I look at winning as sort of like a whole, right? And there's a lot of people that are really, really great at pieces of that whole. It might be finance, it might be fitness, it might be their relationship, but I sort of look at 5 F's: faith, family, fitness, finance, future self. Who are you becoming? And we've got to be winning in all of those areas, or we're not winning at all. It's not a win to be successful in one area, but to lose in other areas. That's not a real win. That's a loss, right? What does it profit a man to gain the world but lose his soul, or lose his family, or lose your health? What does it profit you to have a great family life but be broke and miserable and unhealthy? And so they all work together. And without those 5 things, I don't think we really can be whole. We're always going to be empty in some area. And that one area that we're empty is actually going to impact negatively all the other areas. That they have to work together in synergy. So winning to me is putting W's on the board in all 5 of those areas at the same time. And that's easier said than done. It requires you to know what you want, why you want it, make tough choices, honor your commitments, be consistent over long periods of time. You can't win in those areas overnight. Some of those things, they're not given, they're earned. The only way there is through the path, through the journey.
So what would you say, because, and we're going to talk about your journey to win here in just a second, but what would you say to the person that's just getting started, let's just say in a network marketing business or an insurance company, and they feel like they're maybe not having the success that they want to have in the business? They're putting all this time in, their marriage might be suffering a little bit because of it, but ultimately, like, if you're going to win, there's going to be a little bit of, I guess, teeter-totter over time, right? You have to give a little bit,
sure,
in order to get.
Yeah. So the first thing I tell you is be better. Okay, because we're struggling because we're not very good yet. We're not very good with our skills. We're not very good with our time management. We're not very good with our network and our relationships. And we can get better at all of those things, which is amazing, right? That's why anybody can be really, really successful. People ask me that all the time. Like, do you really believe that? Or is that just something you say because you want people to join your courses or get involved with you in your business? I really believe that. I believe that anybody can win. Not everybody will win. But anybody can win because winning is a process. It's about getting better at the things that we're not great at yet, right? And so what I would tell you is get better, number one, okay? And then number two is to understand, I always taught this, I called it the theory of 10s, Brandon, and basically if you want to be really successful, I'm going to tell you one other thing on balance, okay? But the theory of 10 says if you want to be really, really successful at anything in life, whether that's music or sports or business or your family or as a pastor or whatever else you might be, you need to be a 10. On a scale of 1 to 10, you got to be a 10. You got to be at the top of your game, okay? Because listen, greatness pays. Mediocrity does not, okay? And so you got to be great. But the truth is most of us, we don't just come out of the womb like a superstar at something. We've got to learn those things. And so we've got to be a 10 on a scale of 1 to 10. And so some of those points from 1 to 10 are naturally occurring, and some of them are earnable. Okay. And so you got to make sure that you are doing your part to stack on top what is naturally occurring. And some people, they come in there really successful very quickly at different things. Well, what's happening? They came in as an 8. Their previous life experiences, what they went through, what they had to learn, where they were surrounded, okay, that gave them some of those points, didn't give it to them. They earned it before they got to this venture. And so they started as an 8. They only had to make up 2 versus somebody like me who came into a business that I'd never been in business before, 15, 16 years ago. Didn't really have any marketable skills. I was like a 2. And so I had a lot further to go. The good news is we can all get to that 10 if we're willing to put in the time. On balance, really quickly, you said, hey, their marriage might be suffering because of it. Again, that's just about getting better and putting your time where it needs to go on purpose, right? But one of the things that I try to teach people, Brandon, is there's really like 3 universes of balance. Most people think about balance when it comes to time. Right. And they say, well, I'm out of balance. My work-life balance is off. And what they're referring to is their time is really going heavily in one direction. And for periods of time, you're going to have short-term imbalance for long-term balance, right? When it comes to time. But there are 2 other universes of balance, resources and emotion or engagement. Okay. And so let me give you a picture of this. You may not have a lot of time to be with your kids when you're in the startup phases of your business. It might require a lot of time, okay? But the time you do have, you can resource and you can engage. So what do I mean by that? 1 hour with my kids, listening to them, involved in their life, doing the things they love, an active parent is worth 8 hours sitting there watching TV together. So my time might be out of balance, but I can pull that balance, that holistic balance, all 3 of these universes working together. I can pull that balance in by being overbalanced on some of these other things, right? Okay, I can give them incredible experiences. I can do other things that by overdoing in these areas, I can pull that balance back to center. And it's the same thing in every area of our life. There's time, there's resource, and there's engagement. And so when we're short on one, we need to make sure that we're cognizant about overdoing on the others so that we can bring balance holistically.
Man, I love that. We could stop the podcast literally right there. So I've heard your story and I want them to hear your story. You built a massive empire in the insurance industry. You're living some of the stuff that you're talking about right now, because I know when you first got started, like your story and you didn't have a lot of money. You didn't have a lot of success yet. Like, how did you get started? Why'd you choose insurance? Tell us that story.
Yeah. So it was an accident, a divine accident, really. I was super broke, right? I got married at 21 to my wife, Jessica, of now going on 18 years together, married 20 years together total. But I got married at 21 and I was still in college. I was playing music for a living. Like that's what I did. I had no business sense whatsoever. And so we actually both worked for a church. I was a music pastor for a pretty moderate sized church in Michigan. And I love what I did. It wasn't a job. It was sort of a calling to me. And for any of you who know musicians, if you can make enough money playing music to survive, like they're the happiest people on earth. And that was me. But I was married and we were starting a life together. We just bought a new condo. She worked for the church. I worked for the church. And things were really, really tight. We made about $60,000 a year between the two of us, which in the area we were living in was not very much money. And so I was working other jobs to just make ends meet. I was teaching music lessons and playing in bands, and I would sing at weddings and funerals for $100. If your family member died and you had $100, I'd be there. You know what I mean? Like to just do whatever I could. And so we were working for the church. We were about a year into our tenure there, and I was making $30,000 a year, and I was supposed to be making 40, but they were in the middle of a building project. So they said, well, come in at 30, and within the next year, we'll get you to 40. So I kept the other side gigs up, and right around a year in, 6 months to a year in, I got called into my boss's office one day. And I thought for sure he'd seen all the extra work I was putting in. So I was the music guy, right? But I was helping with the kids and helping with youth. I spent my first anniversary, Brandon, as a pirate in a vacation Bible school play. My wife was a princess. I was a pirate. We didn't go out to eat. We didn't celebrate. That's what we did, right? We just were all in sort of people. And so I thought for sure we would be getting this raise early, right? So I'm telling her like, hey, this is going to be great. We're going to go to Applebee's tonight. It's going to be amazing. And I sat down in his office, and I don't know if any of you have ever taken part in a meeting that was not going to go well, okay? But I knew the moment I walked into that guy's office, I could feel it in the atmosphere. It's just thick, like something isn't going to be right. And he said, Ian, I'm so sorry to tell you this, but we're actually behind now in the church bond payment. Effective immediately, we're cutting everybody's pay 10%. And we're not sure if and when we're going to be able to reinstate it. I'm really, really sorry. I'll try to give you some extra time off. And here I am working 4 jobs, right? I'm like, I don't need more time to do something else. I need this to work out for me, right? And we were broke. We had no money. We did our budget that night, and we were going to be about $250 a month behind it. So my radar went up for ways I can make $250. So my best thinking was I was going to be a night manager at Rite Aid, which is like a convenience store, right? And I was going to work 3 midnights a week for $14.55 an hour. And after taxes, that would make up that $250. And so I applied, and I was going through that process. I was just about to start. And my boss at the church came to me again. He said, Ian, hey, are you still looking to make extra money? And I said, Stephen, you are my boss, with all due respect. That is the dumbest thing that you've ever asked me. You see what you pay me here, right? Like, of course I'm looking to make extra money. And he says, there's a guy that goes to the church that does this thing. That's what he says, right? Does this thing, and you could do it part-time, and you'd probably be good at it. You should talk to him. I said, well, I couldn't make any less than you're paying me. So give me his number. So I called this guy up, and I didn't know him. He would know me, right? Because I'm always on stage, but I didn't know who he was. And said, hey, my boss said you might have an opportunity for me. He said, yeah. I said, well, I'd like to talk to you about it. He said, how about you come by in an hour? I said, in an hour? Okay, I'll be by. It was a Wednesday afternoon in August of 2006. I pull up to this guy's house. No joke, Brandon. He's got this castle-looking house on the lake. Now, I grew up in a 900-square-foot house. My parents still live there today. We didn't know anybody who was wealthy. We were broke, okay? I pulled up to this guy's house. No joke. I'm like, if this guy's not selling drugs to kids, I'm in. I don't care what he's doing. I wasn't real picky, right? Like I understood by looking at where this guy lived, he knew something about making money that I didn't, right? And I was smart enough to not hate on people who were doing better than me, right? Gosh, there's so many people who are offended at the people they should be being mentored by and learning from. And so I'm like, I don't care what it is. I'm going to do it, right? And so he showed me an opportunity to work in the financial services business. I knew nothing about money. I knew nothing about finance. I never run a business. He said, you can do it part-time. I'll teach you. And so I said, well, sounds good. And so I started doing that part-time. And my goal was to make $250 a month, Brandon. That was why I started that business. And it just got a little carried away over the last 20 years. It just got a little out of hand. Okay. And my first few months in the business, I made $1,000 a month, spare time, and I was rich. I'm like, this is amazing, right? Like I was happy as could be. I had no desire to ever run a business full time. I thought that I would always be leading worship at a church. And through another series of events at the church, I ended up getting my pay cut again and having some things that were promised to me not go through. And in that moment, I became psychologically unemployable, right? Like here I am, 21 years old, did everything right, got good grades, went to school, went to college, got a good job, and I'm doing the right things and the wrong things are happening. And I'm thinking like, if a church isn't going to take care of me, I better take care of me, right? And so I made a decision that I was gonna work on going into business full time. And so I called my mentor. I said, hey, what do I need to do? He gave me a list, and I set a goal 6 months out that I would be full time and making 10 grand a month, which was huge money for me. I was making $1,850 a month take home at the time from my main job. And that was my goal. And I started telling that to everybody and sharing it everywhere I went. And 6 months later to the day, I quit my job. I opened my first office. My first month, I made more than $10,000 in a month and never had made less than that since that point. And that business just kind of skyrocketed. We went from making 10 grand a month to 20 to 40 to 60 to 80 to 100 to 120. And that built a recurring $1 million plus income for me that basically went on autopilot. And the things I learned in that business, I wrote a book. I ended up starting some mentoring programs, producing a lot of, leadership and training and development material, starting other businesses. And it just sort of snowballed from there. So last year, we were actually fortunate. We did an exit from that business. It was a multiple 8-figure exit and just absolutely life-changing. We've got a handful of different businesses that we run right now. And we're actually in talks with some private equity right now, and a 9-figure deal on one of them, which is really pretty amazing. And so things are just, they're pretty incredible. It didn't happen overnight. It took us 15 years of doing the right thing every single day, but compounded efforts like compounded interest make a big difference over time.
Man, that's incredible. Your story. I mean, first off, you're one of the few to be able to get started at 21 years old and not just have short-term success, but have long-term success. So I'm very curious. By the way, congratulations on all of that.
Thank you.
And I know all of it was earned, and I'm a big fan of everybody who's winning like that, because it's not just handed to you. Like you had to fight for that for 15 years. And so I'm very interested to hear, at 21 years old, you didn't have maybe the network or probably the skills at that point. I mean, I'm sure you had some good speaking capabilities because you were a teacher or something, because you don't come into the industry, in my opinion. Maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong. But from what I've seen, is like you said in the beginning, you might have the influence when you first get started, but you still got to develop other things in order to have long-term success. You can have short-term success, but you won't be able to keep it. Or on the opposite, you might not be able to come in the industry right away and have quick success because you got to grow the influence, you got to grow the skills.
Yeah.
But what was it for you to where you could come in 21 years old and start crushing it within, your first month, making $1,000 a month, and then, 6 months in making 10 grand a month? Like, that's incredible. What would you say to 21-year-olds right now getting started in the industry?
Yeah. So you're exactly right. Like, you can come in on influence, but then you got to learn leadership, or you come in without that and you've got to learn leadership and influence along the way. For me, I had some level of influence because I try to treat people right and be good to them and be honest with them and just treat people how I wanted to be treated. And so when I started, people thought, well, if Ian's involved in this, it's got to be good, right? And so I had that going for me, like that I had been making some solid choices through my teenage years and into my early 20s, right? And so the people around me did trust me that I was going to do the right thing by them. So that was helpful, but I needed to learn leadership and training and duplication. It's so interesting, Brandon, because for the first 6-9 months, a year, I was making basically all of that money myself. I used to give a talk and showing like virtually all of that was coming from personally selling and personally producing. And I could build a team temporarily and I could get results myself, but I really had a major struggle in transferring that skill set to other people. So that's what I had to learn. I had to learn the teaching part of it. I had to learn the training part of it. I had to learn the systems part of it. And that took time, right? That took time. But every day I just showed up and I did all that I could do. One of my mentors used to tell me, all that you can do is all that you can do, but all that you can do is enough. And what was he saying? He's saying, when you give everything that you have, when you leave it all on the line, when it's all out there on the field, that's enough. That's enough. If you show up every day and you give that level of effort and energy to your clients and to your cause and to you growing as a human being, your gift's going to make room for you. You're going to develop, and people don't necessarily care where you are. They care where you're going. It's not your position. It's your direction that moves people. And people ask, they look at you and they say, is this person, what they're saying and what they're doing, do they match? Are they congruent? Is this person talking a big game, but they're not living it out? And I always wanted to be that person that I would convince you with my work ethic, right? That I was going to do something big in my life, that you would never find somebody that would work harder or smarter than I would.
So, okay, so that makes perfect sense. I mean, obviously you had a lot of trust because you were a man of your word, like you built the credibility, the influence. So what would you say to, like, I don't know, somebody who has been in the industry and maybe they haven't had that level of influence or that level of credibility yet? How can they have the level of success that you've had and still be able to not just live in their current results, but to live in their potential?
Sure. Yeah. Influence and trust starts with you. If other people don't trust you, it's a byproduct of you not trusting you, right? Okay. And so many times, listen, I was guilty of this a lot along the way, is, you'd say, hey, I'm going to do this, or you'd set this goal, or you'd have this great idea or this great intention, and then you don't follow through on it. And every single time what happens there is you erode a little bit of trust. I want you to imagine, Brandon, being a little kid, 5 or 6 years old. Okay. And you come home from school one day and your dad says, Brandon, I'm going to take you to get ice cream. And you're like, yes, ice cream. Ice cream is life. It's going to be amazing. Right. And then an hour goes by and you're like, Dad, when are we going to get ice cream? And you're like, oh, Brandon, listen, I'm so sorry, man. I had to hop on a call. Okay. I've really got to take this tomorrow. We're going to get some ice cream tomorrow. Okay. I promise. You're like, okay, Dad, that's fine. Tomorrow. And you go through all day tomorrow and you're thinking ice cream's going to be here. It's going to be amazing. You're fantasizing about what you're going to get. And you get home and Dad's got something else he's got to work on. Brandon, listen, I'm so sorry, man. Listen, I promise you, tomorrow we're going to get it. I promise you. And the next day comes and you're so fired up about ice cream. And then he's held over, laid out work. There's a big project. He calls you, says, Brandon, listen, man, I know I said, but I just need you to understand I got this going on and we're going to get it. Now, I want you to imagine that happens to you every single day. Every day, Dad promises to take you to ice cream tomorrow. And every single day, there's a new reason. Something comes up, something happens, doesn't feel good, too much time. 6 months in of watching that every day, you're going to stop believing that you're ever going to get that ice cream from Dad, right? You're going to stop believing. Not only aren't you going to believe anymore, but you're probably not going to believe a lot else of what your dad says. And thirdly, you're probably going to start resenting him. Like, why would you just not tell me no? Why wouldn't you just say, hey, I'm too busy? Why would you get my hopes up over and over and over again if you knew you weren't going to follow through? And yet that's how most of us live our lives. We promise ourselves the proverbial ice cream every single day. Hey, I'm going to lose the weight. I'm going to be a better husband. I'm going to stop getting angry. I'm going to stop drinking. I'm going to start going to the gym. I'm going to really dig into that business. And we promise this to ourselves. And every day we come up with a reason why we can't. Well, pretty soon we stop trusting us. We stop trusting our intention, and we even resent ourselves. And if we don't trust us, nobody else is going to trust us. See, I trusted me. I knew, like, no matter what happens, I'm going to stick with this. I'm going to follow through. I'm going to find a way, or I'm going to make one. And so influence and trust with other people starts with you. So what do you need to do to have that success? Start keeping your promises. What can you do today, right now, today, not tomorrow, not next week? What's one thing, one area where you've made a commitment to yourself that you can live up to that commitment today, or at least move in the right direction? Start today, right now, right here, where you are, with what you have, and start building that trust back up with you. Because when you trust you, other people will trust you. That's what I would do.
Man, that's so good. When I first got started, I had some influence because I was a Navy SEAL, but I was a terrible speaker. I was terribly afraid to get in front of people and speak. But I had to force myself because, like you said, if you want to create proper duplication, then you can't be the only ones, you can't tell your team to get up there if you're not willing to do it yourself. So I had to get up there and do it myself. And so I got good just by doing it repetitively over and over and over and over. Repetition is the mother of learning. And it's so funny how over time you can build the confidence as long as you keep doing it. And so, I mean, that's, and I didn't even have an upline in my area when I first got started. Like I was broke, living paycheck to paycheck. I grabbed a sideline and took him out to dinner, paid for all of his dinner. He had some network marketing experience. We were just getting started in the company. I said, tell me everything you know. And I put record on my phone and I asked questions kind of like we're doing right now. Went home and play rewind, and just learn through immersion.
You got to seek out your weaknesses, which is the exact opposite of what virtually everybody does. Everybody tries to shelter themselves from their weakness and puff up the things they're good at. And all that happens there is you just stay good at what you're already good at, right? And what you did is you went and said, hey, I need to figure out what I'm not good at that's holding me back. And I need to eliminate those things or at least shore them up so that they're not hindrances to me anymore. And that's business maturity, right? Hey, what am I doing wrong? One of the things I always tell people, the number one question I would ask that nobody asks is, what do you see in me that's holding me back from being as successful as I could be? Because we don't want that answer. We want to be applauded. We want to be patted on the back. We want to be told we're doing a great job. I want to be told where I'm not doing a great job so that I can stop that from hindering me in the future.
Yeah, man, it's funny in the culture and the SEAL teams is after every mission, we'd come back and we'd do like a little, huddle and we would talk about it. We'd say, hey, these are things we need to improve on. Everything didn't matter rank, didn't matter anything. Like we're talking, high level stuff that we could have done better on that mission. And even if it hurts people's feelings, it doesn't matter. Like there's no feelings in that conversation.
Yeah. Feelings are liars, right? And there's no money in them. There's no money in your feelings. You got to get out of those feelings, right? And you got to get into the truth. And the truth is you're probably not very good yet, or at least you're not as good as you could be, right? And so what are we going to do about that, right? What are we going to do about that? That's where our emotions should go, not in feeling upset or offended, but in getting better. That's what we should be focused on.
Yeah. So, for somebody who won and continue to win month after month, year after year, what are some of the things to where you can help people win, not just short term, but continue to win long term, even if they are a 6 or 7 figure earner already? Because, we've seen it. Like that guy I was talking about when I first got started, the sideline. He came in and had big success for 2 years and then it crumbled because of ego, because of a lot of different things, but people didn't want to work with him. They didn't want to be around him. And so I started seeing, okay, I'm looking at the leaders that I like, and I'm going to grab some of the cool things, awesome things that they're doing and how they treat their people and how they build their business and the culture that they've created. I'm going to implement this. I'm going to look at some of the stuff that he's doing, and I'm going to make sure we don't do that. And I'm going to kill that out like a cancer out of the organization. We'll cut it out.
Yeah, success leaves clues, right? And so you can almost always find somebody ahead of you that you can emulate, right? Okay, and copycat and figure out what they're doing. And if you're in some sort of a venture where there are people that are ahead of you that have blazed a trail, you need to learn from those people what to do and what not to do. In one of our companies right now, we literally invented a product. And so we're the only people in the world that have this. And so that's great. It's blue ocean. There's nobody out there, but it's also tough because there's nobody to model. You are the model. You got to figure it out. There's no right or wrong. You can't go find the guru out here who's done it. You've got to figure it out along the way through experience, which is, a less than optimal way to learn if you can avoid it. So, I love what you're talking about there. Seek people out, figure out what's good, what's not good, and create your own leadership and management philosophy from that. Here's the things I saw I didn't like. Let's stay away from that. Here's the things I saw that I did like. Let's build around that. And that's how you build that philosophy.
I love it. Yeah. And so tell me, so the saying be, do, have, right? You have to, like Jim Rohn says, success isn't something you can go chase. It's something you track by the person you become in the process. You have to become the level of success that you're looking to have in order to actually have it. But in between there is do. And I think a lot of people miss the doing part of going over and over and over and just doing it and failing and getting better and better. And so, without the do, nothing really happens, in my opinion. That's where you're actually going to get out there and get better and better and better. And then eventually you can have it. But how do you, let's just say somebody's right now starting their business, or they've been in their business for a little bit, and they believe the law of attraction, right? They believe that they can get out there and make it happen. But like you said, they're working on their credibility and their influence. But right now they're trying to figure out how to get out of spinning their wheels, and maybe they're letting distractions come in, or maybe, just many different areas, right? Like, what's the DMO that they could focus on, putting their head down, and like Dean Karnazes ran 360 miles by focusing on running telephone pole to telephone pole to telephone pole. Yeah. How can they get better and better and better?
Yeah, that's a good question. So in my book, I wrote about a concept called T-bar, and T-bar stands for thoughts, beliefs, actions, results. And this is a process that all of life operates by, whether we're aware of it or not. It is operating this way. We think things, and what we think long enough and often enough and vividly enough eventually becomes a belief. And then we act on our beliefs. Our beliefs always create action or inaction, and then our results are a byproduct of the actions that we took, right? Okay, and so this is important in answering a question in a couple of ways, right? Because ultimately our current results are the byproduct of our very best thinking and our very best belief systems and our very best actions. And the only way that we're going to change our results long-term and sustainably is not to change our action. That's where everybody wants to go. They say, well, I want to lose weight. And so what do? They start eating different and going to the gym. That's an action. They want a different result. They say, well, the action is what causes that. And that's only sort of true, right? Because that action is not an island. You weren't eating that way and treating your body that way just randomly before, right? That action was a byproduct of what came before it, which is your belief about health, about your worthiness, about what you deserve in life, about what level of priority you're going to give to health. There were beliefs there that created that action. And so what you see these people, they want to lose weight. So they go to the gym, they start eating different for a week or 2 weeks or a month. And then eventually they give that up and they go back to the person they were before. Why? They tried to change their action without changing the thinking and the beliefs that created that action. So what do? You need to become a student of your thinking. Most people are not thinking about what they're thinking about. And their head is full of crap they didn't put there, and programming they didn't download. Somebody else downloaded it into them. And it's manifesting the law of attraction. It's manifesting into our results. If we want to change our results, if we want to break through, we first got to break through in our thinking and our belief systems. And that's the heavy lifting, right? That's the heavy lifting. But that's how you ensure long-range success, right? Like, we've just come out of for those of you who are watching in 2023, okay, we've just sort of come into this period economically where it's really uncertain. There's a lot of crazy things going on. But for 10 years previously, it was like, if you could fog a mirror, you were a superstar, and you could be a 6, and you could get in the mortgage business, and you could not return people's phone calls, and you could be half bud, and you could charge them a big yield spread, and you could do this. But there was so much demand and interest rates were so low, you were a superstar. You make 200, 300, 400 grand as a 6. The problem is it's temporary, because eventually the world always weeds out the 6s, and those people disappear. And all that's left there are the 10s. The 10s are still crushing it, but everybody else has been washed out. And we've got to get better at our thinking and our belief systems, which then automate our actions, right? Listen, it was never work for me. I worked a lot, okay, and I worked very hard and very consistently for a long time. It just never felt like work, because it was the natural byproduct of the belief that if I do the right things long enough, eventually I'm going to have the things I want in my life. The pathway was the process. Oh, you're muted, I think. I don't hear you anymore.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I muted myself out. Just taking my hair left.
All right.
So T-bar.
Edit out.
yeah, exactly. So T-bar. Okay, I love that, by the way. That's awesome. And it's so true. But we, like, over where I train my team, we talk about the bear cycle: belief, excitement, action, results, right? So how if somebody, though, because we're talking about beliefs instead of actions, which I agree and I understand, but how can they, like, let's just take network marketing or direct sales or insurance, or even somebody who's launched their own product or their health, whatever it is, how can they flood out some of the negativity of the programming that they've had, that maybe they think that their industry, they're having some doubts in the industry. And that's why maybe their belief isn't as high as it needs to be. So their action isn't high as it needs to be, and their results definitely aren't going to be very high.
Yeah. So how do you change your belief? That's the question, right? Okay. And that's the $1 billion question. And the biggest gap in the world, Brandon, is the gap between knowing what to do and doing what to do. And in between the thinking, knowing what to do, and the action of doing what to do is this pesky thing called belief. And it sort of acts as an attenuator of sorts, right? You either create alignment flowing from thinking to action, or you create a misalignment where that thinking stops and hits a roadblock and we don't act. So how do we change our belief? Number one is we need to do a belief audit. Are our beliefs serving us? Are they true? Are they right? Are they accurate? Well, how would we know? Well, okay, everything in life grows. Okay, that's what living things do. Have you ever seen a motivational speaker out in front of an oak tree, pumping the oak tree up like, come on, you're going to have the greatest leaves. You're going to grow so big and so strong. You were meant to grow. You're going to have the biggest acorns. It's going to be amazing, right? There are no motivational speakers motivating oak trees to grow. They just grow. That's what they do. It's in their programming, right? And so what we've got to understand is that if we're not growing, we're outside of our program. That is a good telltale sign that we are believing something that is inconsistent with the truth. Because if we believe what is true, our next step is to act on what's true and to have results that grow. That's just how all life works, okay? So let's do a belief audit. Are my beliefs serving me, and are they accurate? Okay, if not, then what we need to do is we need to do a reconciliation. Let's find somebody that is winning and figure out, in what ways do they think and believe differently than I do? And this is where the rubber meets the road, because that's called offense for most people. You think differently than I do. You see things different. You think this is happening because of X and I don't. Okay. And so I know is the chorus line of the average and ordinary. And the refrain is I owe, right? Because it's the things we know that just aren't so that keep us broke. And so I want to do a reconciliation, which is why being around mentors is important, why being involved in listening to development material like this, getting involved in a community like the War Room, or maybe some of the other things that you're involved with, where you can be around people who think differently than you, that are using that different thinking to get better results. So we're aware, right? So we audit, we reconcile, and then we replace. And what do I mean by that? So I learned this lesson the hard way. I used to be a hypochondriac, and that, for people who don't know what a hypochondriac is, that's somebody who thinks they're always sick. And so it was really hard for me, like growing up, to like watch ER or, any medical shows, because within 15 minutes, Brandon, I was experiencing the symptoms of whatever was on that show. But as funny as that sounds, like multiple times I ended up in the hospital, like pretty sure I'm dying, like manifesting these crazy symptoms. And it was just like all inside my head, right? And it was about that time that I'd given my life to the Lord, and I learned about this concept called renewing your mind, right? Taking your thoughts captive and taking them under control. And so replacing is about finding a better thought or a better belief, a more true and accurate belief, as evidenced by results, and replacing the existing thought. And as crazy as it sounds, like I would literally say to myself, that's not my thought. And then I would speak out this new thought. And literally, Brandon, when I finally got so sick and tired of making myself sick and tired and ending up in the hospital, I started a purposeful path of reprogramming. And literally 300 plus times a day, I would catch myself with those negative thoughts, or those negative, that didn't feel right. Something must be wrong. Ooh, I wonder what's going on here. 300 times a day. I would literally say, that's not my thought. And then I would replace it with the truth, right? About health or healing or well-being. And in about a month, that basically ceased. And so we've got to replace repetition. You said earlier is the mother of learning. Napoleon Hill calls it auto-suggestion. Anything that is repeated often enough eventually makes it past the filtering of the conscious mind and into the subconscious belief system. That's how pathological liars become pathological liars. They literally believe their lies because they've been repeated enough that for them, they have accepted it as true. And that's a negative manifestation of this, but a positive one would be seeking out better beliefs and repeating it. So repetition, okay? And number 4 is emotional anchoring. So I want everybody listening to this right now to think about one of your earliest childhood memories. In fact, Brandon, and we haven't rehearsed this, right? Okay.
No.
I didn't tell. No. Okay. What's one of your earliest childhood memories? What pops to your mind?
I don't know, playing baseball when I was young.
Okay. Any specific game or just random baseball or?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. Yeah, what popped in my head immediately was just a championship game, and when we were in
Okay.
like a Pee Wee league. Yeah,
Okay. And how long ago was that? Don't date yourself. Too bad.
30 some, probably 30 years.
30 years ago. Okay. And so if you're like me, you can't remember what you had for dinner yesterday. Okay. But you can probably recall in great detail that championship game, what you were wearing, who was on the team, the score, how it worked, right? What was the score of the Tigers game 2 weeks ago in spring training? You have no idea, right? Okay. But that you know, okay. That's called emotional anchoring. There was a spike on the landscape of your life emotionally, and your mind encodes everything that's happening and immediately locks into your subconscious. So for a lot of people, it's like a traumatic experience. Maybe they're in a car accident or a fight their parents had when mom finally left, or some sickness that a relative had, some spike, some emotional intensity that's not normally there. And we can remember everything about that moment 50 years later in extreme, in exact detail, even though we may not want to. That is called emotionally anchoring. There was an emotional occurrence that was very far outside of the norm, and it imprinted whatever was around you at that point. Well, we can use that strategically. We can put ourselves in position where we are in emotionally amplified situations. That could be a big event. It could be spending some time with a mentor. It could be making a big wager on something that is emotionally heightening us. And in that moment, we can feed ourselves the new thinking and the new beliefs that we want, and we can bypass the repetition, years and years of repetition sometimes, by the way, and we can in a moment make those transitions. It's like the smoker who knows they shouldn't smoke. They know smoking causes cancer. They know that they could have a challenge, and everybody in their life rags on them, and it costs them money, and they know, and they do nothing until they get that diagnosis. They say, you have cancer, and the only shot you have at beating this, you need to stop right now, and we need to work. And they don't even want a cigarette. What they couldn't kick for 40 years in a moment drops off. Why? Emotional anchoring. And with that, the dogs are excited. They're fired up. I don't know if you can hear them. That's the welcome crew. That's the welcome crew. So somebody's here. Okay. And so that's how we change our thinking, right? Is we audit, right? Number one. Number two is we reconcile. Number three is we replace. Number four is we emotionally anchor. And that's how we move into a new thinking and new belief system.
Man, that's powerful. Thanks, Ian. And I know, you have a hard stop at 2:00 your time, which is right now. But can I ask just two more really quick, and you can just fast and furious. So one, what would you say to anybody who's just getting started, and maybe they're getting some negativity from friends and family about the insurance industry being a scam, or network marketing being a scam, or their business that they're launching not going to work? Like what advice you have?
Yeah, broken skeptical is a bad combination, right? So just qualify the criticism. Number one. Okay, the world's full of people who want to project their limitations on you. And just because it's hard for them or would be difficult for them does not mean that it would be for you. And so qualify the criticism. When you buy other people's opinions, you also buy their lifestyles. So buyer beware, just qualify that. That's what I would tell you there about dealing with negativity is, hey, you know what? Don't worry about when people don't support you. Most of them can't support themselves.
Oh, that's good. That's really good. So true too. Okay. Who are your mentors? If you were to go on YouTube today, who are your YouTube mentors that it's like, this is my go-to guys or girls?
That is a good question. And I've been so privileged. I always tell people I'm sort of like a turtle on the fence post, right? I didn't get there by myself. Okay. I've had a lot of great mentors, most from afar. Most of the time I studied people that were great at what I wanted to be great at. And I got all their audios and all their materials and whatever I could, their books, their seminars, whatever I could do to ingest that material. And I studied them until they became friends, right? Until they became peers, until they became people who respected the game that I had brought to the table because I had studied the game and their game for a long time. In terms of different mentors right now, gosh, I have a couple of people that I pay to mentor me, coaches. And then, I think there's a couple guys out there right now that are really on the leading edge of stuff. I love Elon Musk. I think he's obviously brilliant, but I think he's solving some of the world's problems, right? 3 levels of motivation: material, respect and recognition, and legacy. And that dude is definitely playing on level 3, right? Because he's the richest man in the world. We already all know he's a superstar. He doesn't need to do any of this stuff, but he's doing it because he wants to make the world a better place. I think he's definitely a guy that I watch a lot. Another one is this fella here, Alex Hormozy. I don't know if y'all know him, but I think he's got his head on his shoulders, right? And I think that he's got a lot of good wisdom about what it actually takes to win, and isn't full of flash and all sorts of other things. Not that there's anything bad behind that, but he's really built a lot of great content that's very useful for people who are trying to grow a business.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, he went from broke to success too, so that's awesome. So what about how do people find you? So tell us how to find you.
Yeah, thanks, Brandon. So you can connect with me on Instagram at Ian Prukner. Be careful. There's about 25 people impersonating me at any given moment. I will never send you DMs about Bitcoin or anything else. So make sure you find the right one. One with the most followers is me. Okay, so at Ian Prukner. You can also text. You can also text the word byproduct. Byproduct, byproduct, like the name of my book, to the number 484848. And we'll actually send you out some free material and a free lesson from one of my master classes on how to change your thinking, right? How to specifically how to develop thinking and belief systems that serve you. So you can text byproduct to 484848, and that'll also get you into my universe here where we can connect on a deeper level.
Yeah, if you guys don't do that, you're crazy. First off, you definitely text that right now. Call to action. Do not wait. Procrastination is the thief of all opportunity. Now is your time to get mentored by one of the best in the game. And you guys can go to Amazon as well. He's got his book Byproduct there. What else? I know is there any? So you said the most followers. He has at the time of this conversation is over right around 300,000 followers. So don't go to like the 10,000 or the 50,000 follower.
Yeah, it just sits and hovers there. It's the algorithms are the bane of my existence right now. I gain 500, I lose 500. I gain 300, I lose 300. So maybe you'll put me over 300. We'll see. You could be the one.
Do it.
You could be the one.
Hey, hopefully one day I'll put you over 1 million. That's the goal.
Okay. God bless. It's coming. It's just a matter of time, doing the right things every day, baby. That's
exactly.
Well, he becomes your friend.
100%. Thank you so much for your time, man. I know it's so valuable. I appreciate your friendship, man. I really do. And you willing to connect and just pour value into everybody. And so looking forward to getting to hang out with you again here sometime soon.
Yeah, Brandon, thank you so much. God bless you guys. Thanks for your time today.
All right, brother.